Today we're going to be painting a city skyline at night using water mixable oils. Now what I've done already is I've pre-prepared my canvas paper by painting it with black acrylic, a uniform black covering, and let it dry. Now I haven't drawn a single thing, which in hindsight was a little bit foolish. However, I didn't draw anything, and I'm just going in straight with the paint and painting blindly. The colours we need are black, white, cerulean, ultramarine, cadmium yellow and cadmium red. However, I did forget the black, so I painted it without, but the black does help to alter any issues that you may have. So I'm adding ultramarine, cerulean blue and a little bit of white, and I'm painting the glow of each building first, so the subtle lighting from each one. And for that I'm just painting a line and kind of smudging with my finger just to get a diffused look, and it kind of works quite well. And then to get the bright lights on each one, I'm mixing cerulean blue with a bit of white, and as you'll see, it stands out against the glow and really is quite effective. So I'm starting from left to right because I'm right-handed. It's just much easier for me to do that, and as I'm going I'm having to work out what on earth I'm doing in terms of shape, because I didn't draw any of the buildings first, which I really should have done. So I'm following all of the lines that I can see using that cerulean and white mix. This is a really economical way. You use so little paint, it's unbelievable. No water on my brush, just a thin round brush, a number 1 or a number 2, and the paint. I do roll the brush around in the mix to get the point back, and that helps to create the thinner lines. I don't want it runny because I need to be able to smudge and blend a little bit more, and the runny paint doesn't work well for this method. But you could do any evening scene in the same way. I chose acrylic as the underpainting, by the way, because it's just much easier to work with quicker. If I did an oil underpainting I'd have to wait a few weeks for it to dry, so I'm happy having a mixed media piece, and technically they're both water mixable, so that's fine. So I'm going back into that ultramarine cerulean white mix to create the background tower behind the really large structure that I just started painting. And I'm looking for all of the blues, and I'm only doing above the waterline. That's so much easier to work our way, and then the reflection can be done afterwards, as you'll see. This is only slightly sped up than the time it took me. This was a live demonstration, and from start to finish it took me under 45 minutes. It took me about half an hour actually. And then this is the cerulean and white going on top for the glowing lights. So constantly looking at the reference image to see where that is and indicating it. Now because I didn't draw it, I'm really having to do everything by eye. So nothing is straight, nothing is perfect, but do you know what? It's nice and creative. There's already the reference image, I don't need that. And I only want to give an idea of what it is. I'm not trying to copy it exactly or slavishly. It's just an experiment just to show you how you can get a diffused light evening scene with glowing lights and reflection. So you can see my hand is dotting around here trying to find all the areas of blue while I've got it on my paint. If I want it really diffused, that's when I smudge it with my finger. If I want it more highlighted, I will be using just it neat and leaving it largely alone at this point. I'm still with the blue, the mainly cerulean blue now, with a little bit of ultramarine and white, just putting in a few of the fiddly bits with the brush. And it's amazing with this sort of picture, it's more of what you're leaving out as well as what you're painting in that helps create the shapes. So it's almost negative, but we're not negative painting. I know that's a bit confusing. I'm mixing up a bit of a green by adding some cadmium yellow to that colour, because this side of this large structure has sort of green lights growing up it, and there are no lights on where that is, so that means I've just got little black rectangles. So I'm basically painting a thin grid where the black is the black windows, the underpainting is the black windows that are not lit, and diffusing it a little bit as it gets further up the building. So this is all helping to create the shape and the structure of the whole skyline. There's something quite magical about it, especially once the other colours get added. It's really lovely. So just a little almost crosshatch or a grid to try and create those lit walls but not windows. Keeping your colours quite limited is really important for harmony in your work. So we're really only using two blues, a yellow and a red, and white to lighten or brighten in this instance. So I want the glowing red, and it's quite tricky because if you add white to red you'll get pink. So what I've done is I've added a little bit of cadmium yellow to the red and then added a tiny bit of white, and that gives me more of a red but towards the orange tone, which works quite well. But I will be using neat red in some places as well. So I'm just trying to work out the brightest areas of light on the buildings along the waterfront and roughly create the shapes that I can see. So now I've ditched the blue for now, and I'm going wherever I can see red. That's what I'm going to be working on. And the skill here is to not lean on any of the paint that you've already painted down. Now, because we're using a very limited amount of water mixable oils, it shouldn't take too long to dry. This should dry within about a week, whereas the thicker pieces, more impasto pieces, take a couple of weeks to a month to fully dry. Because it dries by oxidation, so it dries from the outside in, and because the acrylics have sealed the canvas paper, it can only dry from the exterior surface, so it takes that little bit longer to dry. Had I used paper though, unprimed, it would cause problems because you'd get the oil seeping through the paper, so you'd get a lovely landscape and then you'd get oily patches seeping around wherever you've put the paint. So I'm still going on there. I've gone now with yellow and a bit of white just to get some of the softer glows of lighting. And it starts to build up. It is lovely to see it just happen slowly in front of your eyes. So you can paint this, or you can paint any night sky. A Manhattan skyline would look really lovely because that will have reflections as well. I was just really drawn by the amount of different colourful lights and the light in the water that's reflecting and illuminating the fountains along the side. So I'm looking at oranges and the overall piece. So where are the yellows, where are the reds, where are the blues? And once I've got a colour mixed in on my brush, I'll just do as much as I can with that while I've got it there. So it's just looking around at the picture, where are the light sources? And as I'm doing the yellow with my little round brush, I'm just indicating the lights on in the building just tiny little drag down so it creates a little bit of a rectangle. A flat brush wouldn't work because I couldn't get one fine enough for this area, because each one is only 1 to 2 mil wide, each window, so you've got a bit of leeway. You don't have to put the same amount of lights on as are in the photograph. But what's quite nice is as you drag down, sometimes it misses and it looks like there might be figures standing in the window in silhouette. So yeah, just work your way around with the yellow and white mix, but more yellow than white. The white is there just to help the yellow be a little opaque. I chose to do this tower block first just because there are a huge amount of yellow lights in the window, and I just wanted to see what it looked like really. The top of the building, I forgot to say, was done in a pinky colour, so I just added more white to the red just for a thin line to give the light over the top, because it is an unusual shape. And once I'm near the end of that tower block, I'll then start scanning the reference to see where any other yellow light sources are. Working from the top down, from the left to the right, is just easier because I'm right-handed, and I'm a bit of a leaner, if I'm honest. I do lean on my work an awful lot. I could use a mile stick, but I don't. I could use some paper underneath my wrist to stop the smudging, but I don't. And then I just moan about getting filthy. And I've done that for 25 years. Do I learn? No. Will I ever learn? No. Just be careful and have some wet wipes. So again, looking for all the yellow areas and marking it in. As these are actual lights, there's not like a diffused area. I am just painting them as is. No tapping or smudging. I'm just marking it in. The fountain, which there's a row of water features really that are backlit from the water upwards, so they've all got a lovely yellow glow, and I'm putting those in the actual water spurts in yellow. All reflections I am leaving until the end. Do them all together because there's a fun way of working with those. And then I'll be adding a little bit of white in the centre, in the bottom where it meets the water, just for that real vibrant area. Now there is a sort of port kind of thing in front, but I don't like that in the reference image. It's quite clumsy and hard to paint in a limited half an hour time period. So I've kind of ignored that, and there is a boat in one of the shelters which I haven't put in either. I just wanted this to show the night skyline and reflections. It's not meant to be an accurate representation of the reference image. It's just a very vague guide. Still with the white and yellow. And now I'm in with neat white to create the brighter lights, and they're slightly diffused, so what I've done there is just flicked out a little bit in a crisscross way to create the diffused sparkle of the really bright white floodlights that are in the picture. And now I'm looking at any areas where there are white light. There isn't as much of this, but by limiting it, it does make a big difference to the impact of the overall piece. And you can see how using just a limited palette really does create harmony with your work, because everything is related to each other, which is wonderful. So still with any white areas. What's lovely, because this is a canvas paper, it is textured because it's canvas, and I can dry brush over it and it will just give me little hints, so not bright strong lines unless I want it to. So I've not really added any water to my brush. I'm cleaning it in between each colour and drying it off. As this is water soluble oil, I am only cleaning with water. and then when I've finished it all, I will clean with warm soapy water to get the residue of oil out. Washing up liquid is really good for this. Sometimes it needs a double wash. So here I've just sort of created the embankment to give me an idea of where the land is, which will also help me with the reflection, because I'll have something to pull down from. There's a few more areas of light that I want to add. And I have to say, I was slightly mildly panicking when I hadn't drawn anything. In my head I thought, oh, I'll just add a few lights and that's it, forgetting how complicated the reference image was. And then I really wish I'd drawn something. However, I hadn't, and I think being quite almost blasé about how I'm doing it really helped with the overall image, whereas if I was being extremely precise and structured, it wouldn't have as much life and it would just look like a reference image, which is pointless because we've got one of those. So the reflection, you can see, is using exactly the same colour, but I'm just pulling it down with my finger to diffuse it even more. What's wonderful about the reflection is it bears no resemblance to what it's being reflected. It just has the same colours and the similar shape, which is even better. So again, I'm going in exactly the same way. I'm looking, while I've got the blue on my brush, where is all the blue reflection? Then I'll do the same with the reds and the yellows and the whites and build it up that way. But pulling it down with your finger really does help. And I know it's a little bit messy, but as it's oils, it is fun, and it's water mixable oils, so the cleanup is even better. So I'm now onto the red, where the red reflection is. And again, I stroke down with the brush and then drag down with the paint. And that will diffuse and soften the colours even more. But that does enable you to build up the layers a little. So searching for all red areas in the scene. The reason I'm going in this colour sequence, there is no reason, it's just what I started. You could do all the reds first, or all the yellows first, or but the blue was the majority colour, so I felt like using that first. Slight highlights with the cerulean blue and white to get the brighter lights. And we'll build up and keep building up until we find something that we're fairly happy with. So stroking downwards and then dragging down with your finger really makes a massive difference. So I'll be moving on to the yellow colours shortly to try and indicate where those glows are. Everything in water tends to be more elongated, and if the water's moving, it will be more elongated than the reflection. So make sure you use a clean finger. I wasn't using a clean finger, and my yellow light started to go green because I was dragging it down with my finger that I was using to drag the blue down with. So clean your fingers or find a clean finger to do that. All those loads of hundreds of little lights that I added in the reflection don't exist. It's just like a shimmer of yellow in the water, which is even better. It was music to my eyes when I saw that. Then the fountain light is created in exactly the same way. You drag down with the same colour and then drag down with your finger. So it's getting near to completion. Probably about another 5 minutes left of this demonstration. As I say, the whole thing took me just over half an hour from start to finish. So I've sped it up extremely slightly to fit in under 25 minutes so you can see how it's done. But if you are going to paint along with this, you can always pause me. If only people in real life could do that, I'm sure they'd love it. You can also mute me as well. So I've gone in with a slightly whiter yellow and a slightly brighter red, just to put in some of the stronger glowing aspects of the reflection. And then going back to the buildings just to make sure I can brighten some of those up and make it work as well. So there's still a little bit more I want to do with that reflection, and then I want to work on the diffused light pollution behind, and that makes it look like I've bothered just leaving it black acrylic sky. Looks a bit naff, to be honest. So I'm adding a few more lights and then the reflection of those lights to see how it goes. And it can start looking a little bit cluttered if you're not careful. So the difficulty is the camera sort of freaks out a little bit with all of the colour on the black. So I'm using a clean, dry 1-inch flat brush and just very delicately dragging all of those colours down, wiping the brush, and then I'm going to just horizontally dust it left to right and right to left, just to soften and diffuse that waterline even more. If I wanted to create movement in that water, I could literally just scratch out with the back end of a brush or a painting knife point to create a few darker lines. Now for the light pollution, I'm just using white and a lot of water to create that area behind the buildings, and then smudging up with my finger. What that does is it helps define the skyline and creates that diffused light pollution, as you can see in the reference image. Some of it's white, some of it's blue. I'm going to do a bit of both in there, and you really do need a lot of water. The snag is when you start using a lot of water with water mixable oils, it dries even quicker. So you do have to make sure you do all the blending well beforehand. You don't get as long to mix, but you still get longer than with acrylics. So this is really runny brush. I could have used a slightly bigger brush than this. This is sort of like a 1/4 of an inch flat brush, but I really wanted to make sure I was getting into the areas more carefully, because I don't want to go over those buildings that I've just spent 20 minutes painting. So just that flat brush and water, brushing it upwards into the dark, and then I'll use my fingers to tap and smudge to make it work. And you can see there's your skyline, adding a little bit of blue for the diffused reflected light and the light pollution from those bright blue towers. I don't want to cover all of that black, because that would be pointless really of actually doing it black if I ended up making it all grey to start with. A few little areas of light that I hadn't spotted. And a bit more smudging of that pollution of light into the sky. Now obviously it's much darker than this in real life, but the camera does lighten anything black, because that's what cameras do. They struggle with high areas of contrast. But that's how you know you've got it right, if your camera freaks out a little bit. And I'll just post the finished image close up so you can see it in more detail. Thank you for watching.